So I'm Lisa Moore, and this is my husband Kent. And I was just thinking, we moved to Stow in 1990 when our kids were 5 and 2, and we moved from California. And we drove across the country then with a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we stopped and camped and stayed with friends along the way. And we got here, and the moving van couldn't get up our driveway. We live on Conant Drive in Stow with the driveway that goes up like that. So they had to get a pickup truck to shuttle the stuff up to our driveway. And then we're like, what are we getting into? I mean, I had lived in New England and grew up there, but my husband had never been to living in New England. So we suffered with that driveway for many years, but now we're sort of... But anyway, driving across the country and in this RV that we bought in our retirement was always a lifelong dream, and we were so fortunate to be able to do it this year. So that's what I'm going to show you. So Port Townsend is northwest of Seattle. It's where my brother lives. So that was our farthest west destination. But we took a whole month for the trip, and this is where we started. So here's a map of you can tell, and I'll just go, this is the road that we went on, and I'll talk about all these places that we stopped along the way and, got back. Here we are, 705,090 miles, which is a lot, considering I did not do any of the driving. I mean, I could have, but I don't know, Kent likes to drive, and I didn't really feel, like I wanted to drive. Instead, I wanted to control the music and whatever else, and knit. I knit this scarf while we were on the trip. So the first place we went, this is us in Lake Canandaigua, New York, which is in the Finger Lakes, where we went to Tim Reed's house. Does everybody remember who Tim Reed is? Was library trustee and stuff like that. Well, he moved up there. He still has the house in Stow, but his daughter, Megan, and her husband and kids live up there at a ski resort place, so he wants to be up there. So he bought this house on the lake, and that was the first place we stopped. We invited ourselves. We said, we're going on the cross-country trip, can we stop and see you? So this is him taking a picture of us as we are leaving. But this is his house, and we went kayaking and kayaking, and we saw some eagles. You can barely see them up in the tree, but they're there, and there's Tim and Kent. And the Finger Lakes is a lovely, lovely area that's within a reasonable distance to go for, short trips or whatever. So when we planned this trip, we planned who we were going to see along the way and who we were going to meet, and then where we were going to camp. And you have to make reservations. So we camped in different provincial parks in Canada and state parks and national parks and even KOAs, because you just have to figure out how far you can drive each day or how long you want to drive. And I think we decided we ended up driving on a lot of days too many hours because, it's tiring after a while. And then you get to a place and you don't have time to do all the fun kind of things that are around there, and then you have to get up the next morning and go again. So we decided next time we want to drive. So we went to Niagara Falls, which I hadn't been to since I was like 10 years old, and we went on the Maid of the Mist. And we saw, and everybody had their blue ponchos, and it was really, really wet. And my big question was getting off. Are you going to recycle these ponchos? And yes, they do. You put your ponchos, and then they somehow dry them off and give them to the next people, which I thought was good.
Anything exciting? Someone trying to go over the falls in a barrel while you were there?
No, but I did hear while we were on the trip that a woman and her child fell over, maybe on purpose, and so. But no, we didn't. We hear all about that. There's a museum and stuff there, and it's very much built up there. But it's really nice. And apparently, according to what we heard and read, that the Canadian side is a lot more built up and commercial. There's casinos, but that was okay. So then oh yeah, that's right. All right.
And the casinos take bets on whether someone will survive the falls.
I don't know. So then the first place.
When did you start your trip?
When did we start? August 25th or 20, something like that. End of August. So here we were in this provincial park, Lake Huron in Canada, and we drove. This is just a picture of a map. I love map pictures. And it was a beautiful park. And the Canadian provincial parks are fabulous. Well maintained and just really, really good. And these are just some pictures from when we were up there. And then we drove from there further up to Lake Superior, which is huge, and we camped there, and it looks like the ocean. It looks like Cape Cod. I mean, that kind of picture. And the waves kind of sounded like that. And this was a hike that we took up there, plus some waterfalls. Oh, and this is me eating poutine, which is sort of a joke, because earlier this summer we went to Halifax, Nova Scotia for a week with this Middlesex County Volunteers, which I'll tell you about, and everybody was talking about eating poutine and raving about it. So we found some in a roadside stand, and it was not that good, but it's Poutine. It's French fries and cheese curds and gravy, and apparently you can get all kinds of different flavors. You can get lobster poutine, you can get whatever, but it's just really, really filling, and we bought it from some food truck on the side of the road, so it wasn't good for leftovers, which we found out. And so this is also around more of the top of Lake Superior, going through Thunder Bay, Canada, which is right on the border of Minnesota, and that state park, provincial park, is called Sleeping Giant. We camped near there. And this, when we were in Thunder Bay, we saw this monument that we had. We were driving along the road first, and it was very open area, like, you know, very northern plains, or not a lot of trees or anything like that. And I saw this woman, like our age, like walking down the side of the road, and she had a T-shirt on that said "Walk something." So I looked it up. I Googled her, and she was walking across Canada from British Columbia to Newfoundland to raise awareness about domestic violence because of what happened in her family. So when we got to the park, which was, you know, in Thunder Bay, which was shortly after that, we saw this monument. And this is Terry Fox. He was a Canadian who started running across Canada in the other direction to raise money for cancer. And he stopped there because he got ill again and couldn't complete, but they made this monument to him. So when we went into the visitor center, we were asking the people about the other woman, and they said, "Oh yeah, she stopped by here the other day." And it was just so you can Google these people, you can find out how to send them money, which I'm sure they would love. And so then we went in to Minnesota, and this is the headwaters, or not quite, of the Mississippi River. And coming from New Orleans, I just thought I needed a picture of the other end. This is Bismarck, North Dakota. As you can see, the state capitol, and that is the state capitol building. It was really smoky that day, and that's why it's so hazy. And I think the fires were in Canada, kind of blowing. I mean, we didn't run into any fires that interrupted our trip or anything, but that was definitely noticeable. And these are from a museum that's on the grounds. It's a very great Native American museum, and there was nobody there that day. It was just really kind of nice. And then we camped in Billings, Montana. That is the world's first KOA. Who knows? We didn't know that. But and growing up as a kid, and also with Ken, we've always been big campers, you know, tent camping, whatever. But going to KOA is like, you don't go to KOA. But KOAs are not that bad after all. They were okay. So with this KOA, I ran into this woman. I didn't run into her. She probably could have run into me. But in the morning when I woke up, I saw this big RV with this map and this woman standing out there. So I went over and talked to her. And she and her family are driving across the country, or to all the different state capitals where her husband is running to certain distances, and they're fundraising for grief support. Survivors is the name of their group. And it all started that mom was driving her 5 kids back from Florida back to North Dakota, South, wherever they live. And she got into an accident, and the accident resulted in her oldest daughter's death. So that just like devastated the family. So to pay back for all the support they got, they're going to all these different capitals. I can kind of see the outline of their map. I don't know when they're coming to Boston. I think it's sometime this spring, and they're just trying to raise awareness and fundraising to help grief support children, turn their grief into something productive or something like that. So I did look up that organization, and they're very well funded. I just thought it was fascinating. So on this trip, she has her 4 remaining kids with her, and she's homeschooling them. One's a college age and one's high school, and 2 are kind of littler, but she's homeschooling them while they're driving around the country doing this. So it's amazing the different lifestyles that people have. So that was cool. Then this is Butte or Bozeman, or I don't know, all those 4B states in Montana that we just went to. We went out to lunch, and we came into to Bozeman or Missoula on the right. And Missoula is a big college town in Montana, and they were having this Roots Festival that day. So we just stopped by and listened to some music and got some great food and walked around a little bit. And then we went to camp in this very remote location in Montana, and that's our RV at the campsite. It looks pretty, and there's a lake there. It was pretty, I mean, because it was during the week. It wasn't very, crowded or anything, but it was nice. And then,
Are you still in September now?
yeah, no, actually it was Labor Day when we were in Thunder Bay, and we were trying to find some place to eat like smoked seafood, because we kept passing all these signs that were talking about smoked fish and stuff like that. We got there. Labor Day is more celebrated in Canada. There, everything was closed, except this one little place that we found that was all right. So I was surprised to see that. So then we keep going west, and we get to Washington. Like driving across Minnesota and Montana and eastern Washington, it's just so flat and so many fields, and it's just amazing. So we were staying in a hotel that night because there wasn't really any place to camp, and I don't know, we just needed a break. But this is the sunset when we were at that hotel. And at one point when we were driving across, I think it was Washington, they had, miles and miles of all these different kinds of fields, mostly corn, I think, and everything. But they labeled, every couple miles there was a sign that's saying that this is corn, and this is soybeans, and this is whatever else, so that you could kind of tell what the crops look like, and different kinds of ways that they made their hay bales shapes and cinnamon rolls, and how many they had, and it was amazing, cattle and all the rusted automobiles, and I mean, it's there's a lot to look at out there, even though it seems pretty empty. So this is when we're coming into eastern Washington. So you go all the way across, and then you get to the Sierra Mountains, and you cross over. And we actually went south to Tacoma, up to Port Townsend, which is right here, really across the strait from British Columbia. And it's have we ever been up there before? No.
Port Townsend?
Yeah. You have been to Port Townsend? That's what I said.
I've been to Seattle and
Right.
Victoria.
Right. So Port Townsend is a very old fishing community, and my brother's gotten involved with this wooden boat festival, which is apparently like a pretty well-known thing every year. And people have their sailboats, and they bring them, and they just have all these displays about wooden boats and stuff like that. So that was really fun, and that's kind of, I don't know if we knew when we started that was the weekend that we were going to be there, but it was great. So in this picture on the left is my 92-year-old mother and me and my brother Chris, who lives in Colorado, and then the other picture is my mother. You can see the brightly colored clothes that she always wears. And my other brother Mark and his partner Tree. So there we were at the boat festival. It was really nice.
Your mom looks great for 92.
Yeah. I know.
Inspirational.
I know. Well, I'm hoping to get them all to come here for the 250th Patriots Day, because we're in the Middlesex County Volunteers. So I just kind of want to have them see that. So then my brother has this little wooden sailboat, so we went out on that one day. And those are just some other boats in the harbor. And then this is at Olympic National Park, which is, right outside of Port Townsend. And these are some places that we hiked to Hurricane Ridge, and that in the distance you can kind of see the low clouds are over Vancouver. And we saw, I don't know why he wrote Roosevelt elk, we did not see, but there was deer that were right there. People were sitting picnicking right there, and they didn't even realize that the deer were right there. And these are just some other things that, this is called a nurse tree, where trees start to grow out of the decaying stumps of older trees. And since I'm a nurse, I thought that was important. And then this, they showed all the stuff that washes up and how long, you can't really read it, how long it takes to decay. And all I know is I have a pair of shoes exactly like that. And last time I looked, they were both in my closet, so I don't know. It's just kind of funny to see that. And then we left on the ferry. We were going across Puget Sound. And the day before we left, I'll try to be politically correct about this. The day before we left was the day after the Trump-Harris debate. So we were waiting in line to go on the ferry, and I just walked to this little shopping area, and that's where the Kamala headquarters was for Port Townsend, that area. So I bought a big sign, and they were all happy because this was the beginning of what we thought was going to be. So anyway, I just thought that and I carried my Kamala sign all the way home. And then in this after we got off the ferry, we were on this little island called Whidbey Island, and there was all artsy-craftsy, all the towns, and there's so many artsy-craftsy great places to go to. So I was in the store talking to this woman who is from Northborough, Massachusetts. And she ended up there because one of her kids went to school out there or works for Google or something like that. So we just had a great conversation about Massachusetts. And then we were driving through the North Cascades. David Thompson is a big explorer from out there that I didn't really know that much about. We took a picture, and we were at another campsite. And the campsites were so pristine. I mean, you can go pick up firewood and stuff like that. They did warn you that bears were around a lot. We didn't see any, but that's part of the reason why we decided we needed an RV, because you can't camp in a lot of places without that, because it's just...
Bear spray?
Pardon?
Did you have any bear spray?
We didn't buy any bear spray. You could rent bear spray, like if you're hiking in Glacier or something like that, because apparently it's very expensive. But we didn't go on any hikes that we were going to be that far away from civilization, I guess, or I don't know, but they can be anywhere. And then this is at the North Cascades.
Nice picture.
Yeah, it's very, very rugged mountains. I don't, you don't hear so much about that part as you do about Glacier and Rocky Mountain and stuff like that, but these mountains are pretty spectacular, and both of my brothers were mountain climbers, so they were much more familiar with this area.
Water too. So.
Yeah, and there was actually an active fire somewhere in that park, because we drove past where there was a camp for the firefighters, and there was some sign that pointed in the direction, but we didn't really see any evidence of it at all.
So it was very clear in that lake.
Yeah,
Well,
it was cloudy that day.
A lot of glacier runoff, so it's why that color is sort of aquamarine.
And this was we took a hike up to this place called Lost Lake, which was pretty strenuous. I mean, I'm not in that great hiking place. And it was really, to me, I was cold. I mean, I had long underwear and a cat and whatever like that. And we saw this younger people hiking up the trail. We saw this young woman kind of jogging up the trail. I don't know if she's in that picture, but she jogged up to like this point and took her clothes off. She did have a bathing suit on and jumped in the water. And then we're hiking back and we see her running back down with her wet hair. I'm like, okay, it's like to do on a Tuesday afternoon or something. And then this is Sandpoint, Idaho. And so the same brother who lives in Port Townsend built this yurt in Sandpoint, Idaho about 10 years ago.
Near Coeur d'Alene.
Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, right. It's very rustic. It does not have facilities. There's the outhouse. But fortunately, I didn't have to use the outhouse because we were parked in our RV. And so we just went there for a couple days because we had never been there before, and I wanted to see it. So he came over from Seattle too, and so he was there with us for a couple of days also.
How far is it?
It's like 6 hours. It's pretty far from Seattle. It's not that
right.
close.
The distance
what I
is
was
huge.
thinking.
Yeah.
And so we went fishing one day. Very, very, very windy on a big lake. Lake Pondere is called. It's from French spelling. And we didn't catch any fish. Kent caught a little fish at first, and we threw it back because we for sure we'd catch more, and we didn't catch any more.
Those are the fish we were trying to catch.
Those red salmon.
Landlocked salmon.
Okay.
And they've actually changed color, so that those, you don't want to eat those, but the ones we were trying to catch in the lake were not turned yet.
And then we were back sitting at on my brother's little porch, and there's the sunrise, and yeah, it's a beautiful place. There's so many beautiful places out there. And this is on the way to Glacier Park. This is a fall called Kootenai Falls, and there's this suspension bridge that walks across. It was pretty scary because it's sort of... And now we're at Glacier. So, I mean, Glacier's on so many people's bucket lists as a beautiful place to go, and it is. And we had been there before when we drove across the first time in 1990. And so we went, and we could not get a campsite in the park because it was too full up. And this was after September. This was like September 9th or something like that. So we found a campsite that was like, I don't know, 5 or 10 miles away, very rustic campsite. And we pull into that campsite, and the camp host is a big truck with Louisiana license plates. So we go start talking over to him, and he's from Ponchatoula. We're just talking all this Louisiana stuff, and he had such a great Cajun accent, and saying that they wanted to be camp hosts, which is a great opportunity if you want to go stay in one place for all. And they wanted to do it at Glacier, but they could not get a place too. So they ended up at this, place. So that's not in this place. So Lake McDonald is the big lake that, there's a lodge at the southern end, and there's another big lodge. So, we just took some pictures of that. It was too cold that day to do anything like swimming and stuff. So this is the lodge, and this is the inside of the lodge with those beautiful lanterns that I bought little one as a Christmas ornament. And also when we got to Glacier, we didn't realize that they have free shuttles that will take you all the way up to going to the Sun Road or across it, which is the top part where it's supposed to be so spectacular. Well, those free shuttles had ended the day before we got there. We didn't really know that. And so you could do it this way, which is much more commercial, and these trouble. We didn't want to do that. Plus, we also found out that the length limit for a vehicle to go all the way up to going to the Sun Road is 21 feet, or our RV is 25 feet. So we couldn't even go all the way up. It's okay. We're like, okay, this is what's going to happen. So we drove up. Yeah. So we drove up as far as we could along the road and just stopped at different places and took different hikes. But it was you had to drive by and come back and look for a parking space just like at Target or whatever, because there were so many people there who wanted to hike. So learning experience, but these are some of the places that we saw just along the side of the road. And then we left and we went to North Dakota, Theodore Roosevelt National Park, which is another one that you don't hear very much about, but it's pretty interesting, and the story of how he really liked it out there and had a ranch, but he had to sell it because, I don't know, but it's just, I don't know, I just thought it was really cool, and that Peaceful Valley Ranch was kind of like where the ranger station was, and this was actually from a campground that we stayed at out there, the Windville. I just really liked it. And then of course you see the buffalo, and they were all over the place. They just walk across the road and plop down and make some big plops. And
Lisa, did you have any on the highways either way where you deer ran across the road?
Not that
We saw deer strikes, but we didn't
hit any.
didn't see any deer. Yeah.
And then prairie dogs are the other guys that live out there, and you can't. I mean, they're so little and so fast, but you can. That's the way they live. But it was really funny to hear about that. And then we went to Custer State Park, which is where the Crazy Horse Monument is, which is a story that I didn't really know the whole history of. But in the early 20th century, I don't know what organization started it, but they wanted to build this huge Crazy Horse monument, and they contacted this sculptor from Boston. I can't remember his name, but he's Polish. He's very well known, and he went out there with his family and started making this giant Crazy Horse monument. And it's still, it's still not done. It's not, they had big cranes up there and huge, vehicles, moving rocks, and used dynamite and stuff. We saw that.
They started about the same time Mount Rushmore was started. So Mount Rushmore is finished, and they're still working on it now.
Yeah, and this is a model of what it's supposed to look like when it's done. But the whole land surrounding it, which is now I think, I don't know if it's owned by indigenous Americans, but they have a school there, they have a whole visitor center and a museum, they're going to build a medical center there for that community. And they had a demonstration of Native American dancers there that day, and they were pretty spectacular, and talking about they were going to the World Championship of hoop dancing. And then practically across the street is Mount Rushmore. And we had never been there before either, and that's pretty impressive. I just do think that's pretty impressive.
Is there really room for another face over there?
I hope not. I don't really know, and we saw a movie about it, and I don't know if they talked about it, because they did talk about how they started Jefferson, I think,
on the left side of Washington.
and then the rock wasn't good.
Wasn't good, so they had to move it to the right side of Washington.
Something like that. But you can't get anywhere near close to that. I mean, I guess there's guided tours. You can go up to where they're carving Crazy Horse, but you can't get anywhere near there. And then after that, we kept going into South Dakota to the Badlands, which look like kind of like moonscape. And all these pictures of the Badlands and stories about, the people who tried to go and live there and what they tried to do. And I could remember, thinking about Laura Ingalls Wilder and Little House on the Prairie and how they moved to De Smet. I don't know, one place they were was in South Dakota, but it's pretty desolate. And then we're already on the way home. So we drove, but by this time we had not gotten into any big arguments. We had been eating really good food. I mean, we cooked and we went out sometimes, but we were kind of getting tired. And we drove past Chicago. I don't know why you put a question mark there, because I know it's Chicago, because I took the picture.
Spelling's wrong.
She says it's Chicago.
Oh, yes, right. You spelled wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
No, Chicago. That's why I made it.
Anyway, and then we were going past. We went on the underneath side of which lake that is. I can't remember, Lake Michigan maybe, and ended up on Lake Erie in this state park there near Toledo, which was lovely. I mean, it was pretty deserted, but
Can you swim in those lakes?
you can now. I just remember as a kid growing up and hearing how Lake Erie was most polluted and stuff like that.
Actually catch on fire once.
I think so. Cayuga, Ohio, or something like that.
River caught on fire.
Yeah, I remember that. But now I think it's really cleaned up. And then the last stop was Watkins Glen, so back in the Finger Lakes. And we stopped to visit my friend Tracy Thompson, who I know from New Orleans, who relocated to Watkins Glen, and she's a hat maker, and she made this hat. She has many hats that she made, so I wear this. I always wear this hat, and yeah, we just met her and stayed. And that was where we had our first and last fight. Was we got to Watkins Glen, and it was pouring rain, and we were hungry and tired, but we ended up going to a very nice restaurant in town and sitting down. This couple started talking to us, and they were boat owners, so they knew all about the Wooden Boat Festival that we had just come from in Port Townsend, and they actually had bought this boat that was in this, I can't remember now, this boat that was in this movie in the 40s and 50s that was touring around whatever lake is where Watkins Glen is, and they would give tours of this romantic boat was from this movie, and they talked about tours they used to give on boats down in the Florida. So it was like, you meet strangers, and they're only strangers for about 5 minutes, at least when I'm talking to everybody. The other thing that I did on this trip too, which seemed to be a thing, started collecting stickers for my water bottle, which I think I learned from my granddaughter was a thing. So I found all these stickers, and then I had to get more water bottles because I kept getting more stickers, and I wanted to remember all these places with my water bottle sticker. So she took a picture of us, on our last day before we drove home, kind of in the rain, and it was, the end of September now, and we were driving kind of through the Berkshires, and the trees were starting to change a little bit, and we're like, yeah, I guess it's time to go home. And we were really comfortable in our V. I mean, I was thinking we should have brought it here to show it everybody, but it's in the shop, which is another whole story about buying an RV is like buying a boat, I guess. There's always something that's going to go wrong with it. So when we first got it, we bought it last February, and I think we picked it up in April. And there was some problem with the solar panels on the top and with the sewage drainage system, which is not pleasant. But anyway, we brought it back, and they said they fixed it, and they didn't. So then after this trip, I don't know what's happened. But anyway, it's been up there since December 2nd in New Hampshire where we bought it. And I don't know, Kent called a couple weeks ago, and when they installed the new solar panel, the guy dropped something on it and broke it. So now they have to get another. And there's still problems with the sewage drainage system. But we are going to get it back, I'm sure. But the inside, I mean, we had talked about buying an RV for a long time and thought about like always wanted an Airstream because that was like luxury. And Kent had one, his parents were take him around on that. But we decided, we really researched it a lot, decided we wanted something that we could drive. We didn't want something that we'd had to have another vehicle for. And we looked around, and we actually rented a couple of different parts of the country to try them out. And one we rented in West Boylston. We drove it to Virginia and picked up my grandkids who were like 8 and 4 at the time or something like that. And we went to Shenandoah, and it was great fun, except it was like driving in a tin can full of marbles. It was so loud. And I was like, I can't do this, especially with 2 kids fighting in the back all the time.
What brand is that?
This is a Winnebago. It's on a Mercedes Sprinter van, so it runs on diesel. Yeah, and which is what Kent really wanted. Ever the research scientist, he really spent a lot of time doing it. So we went and we looked, and the interior, it's so comfortable, and it seems so much more spacious. I mean, there's a sleeping on the top over there for one person, and then
Large enough for 2 small grandchildren.
right, if you
Over
can,
the
yeah, and then the table folds into a bed, which is also could be for 2 little people or one. And then the bed in the back is a queen size bed. It's very comfortable. It has a shower, and it's decent size shower, and yeah, it's great.
Just find places to hook up.
Yeah.
You get the sewing, get water.
Right, and some places have that. Some state parks have, some not. It depends, and there's different prices for the different kinds of hookups. Or if you just want to, what they call it, boondocking, where
you don't hook up.
Where you don't hook up. And
the tanks, or water tank and the sewage tanks are very big, so you can go for probably 4 days without dumping. So.
Yeah.
Does it charge its own battery? And you have to
solar batteries, solar panels on a roof with a lithium battery. So.
But there's also propane, and there's all kinds of different things that I don't ever want to learn anything about.
But you could cook?
Oh yeah, there's a 3 burner, hi Juno, 3 burner gas stove. There's a microwave. There's, a good size sink, really good size refrigerator. So it's definitely
cozy.
Well, yeah, but comfortably.
But it was enough. That was big enough for the
Oh, yeah.
ute.
Yes.
Very comfortable.
To only get into one fight in a month. So, I mean,
There wasn't enough space.
right.
And we were rushing back because
Because of this. So we had to get back by September 28th for this, because we are members of the Middlesex County Volunteers. That's Kent on the left and me on the right, or vice versa. Yeah. Which we joined after retirement too, and we are having so much fun with this group of people that we went to Halifax with, and it's just, I don't know, I think I keep saying, I don't know how I ever had time to work when I'm having so much more fun.
Going to Lexington Green?
Oh, well, yeah. We're going, this will be my 3rd Patriots Day, so I marched in the last 2 Patriots Day parades and participated in that, and then Kent decided that I was having too much fun without him, so he joined. But the big challenge for him is he had to shave off his beard of 40 years. He had a beard since we were married. So because this group, they want to appear androgynous, they all have to look the same. So he has to shave his beard off but then he grows it back in between. So he's had it now since before Thanksgiving when we marched in the Plymouth parade. So I have brought a whole bunch of brochures. That's another thing I do is I pick up things when I go and just, if you want to look at those or, take some if you're thinking about planning trips. But yeah, it's I don't know. It was so much fun, and I didn't think it was hard, though you did all the work.
If you had it to do, what did you learn? What would you do differently if you repeated this trip?
Take more time.
Yes, and we were under this time constraint, so we had to do it in a month. And I would say it'd probably be better 6 weeks to 8 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, because then you can spend more time at each stop.
But we learned some things along the way. In Spokane, Washington, which is on the eastern side, there's a huge RV, I don't know what you call it, manufacturing, storing. You can store your RV out there even if you live here, and then you can fly out there and go from there, so you don't have to do that whole big drive from here.
Next big trips is to go to Alaska, so we're going to pre-position the RV in Spokane and then fly out there and go to Alaska after that.
When is that happening?
Well, oh, you don't know about that plan?
You say someone to drive it out there?
Oh, no,
Well, you-
we'll take it out there,
Or you-
leave it there, fly back, and then the next season, go back, fly back out, and then go to Alaska.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for staying.